Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Reverend Jeannie, and thank you for the healing meditation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The topic that I've chosen to talk about today is awakening and birth. We're just over a week away from the official beginning of spring, and springtime is a season of new growth, and we see this all around through new growth of plants and birth of new babies in the animal world. So if we see that nature is awakening, how do we apply the concept of awakening to ourselves, to our own lives? What is awakening? Well, the ing at the end of the word gives an impression of an ongoing process. It's action. So awakening is an ongoing process of becoming awake. If you're awake, then you're conscious. If you're conscious, then you're aware. So perhaps we could say that awakening is an ongoing process of opening your awareness. What I find interesting about this is that as we go about our lives, we're constantly in a state of awakening. Every moment we have another opportunity to learn something new, to allow ourselves to go beyond in some way in our thinking. Birth is an awakening. When we think of a baby being born, what an amazing journey it is that creates the miracle that we think of as birth. Awakening is the allowing of an opportunity to change. Many years ago, I had an experience that I would call my awakening, and I would say that it began a process of rebirth in my own life. To explain what happened during my awakening, I need to give a little bit of background. When I was about 9 years old, I had an experience that terrified me. I was in my bedroom reading a book and starting to get very relaxed. And as I was laying there in bed, I suddenly felt and heard an energy, buzzing feeling in my head. And as this happened, the room changed colors to a strange shade of gray. And I also realized that I was frozen, kind of paralyzed, unable to move or speak. And then I saw a group of people gathered in a semicircle around me. And they all wore gray hooded cloaks. And I couldn't see their faces. And I was so scared. I was just a little girl. And I wanted to call out to my mom to come and help me, but I couldn't do anything. And then from the middle of that semicircle came another figure, a darker color of gray, also in a hooded cloak. And this figure was bigger than any of the others. And it came forward and moved toward me. And I wanted to run, I wanted to scream, and I couldn't do anything. And the hooded person reached a hand out toward me, and I just knew that these were dead people coming to get me and take me to where dead people go. And I was desperate to get away. I kept trying to wake up, but nothing seemed to work. And finally, in desperation, I realized that I couldn't wake up because I wasn't asleep. So I forced myself to relax, and as I relaxed, then I was able to wake up. And that experience when I was 9 taught me to begin blocking those energy feelings in my head. It taught me to work on blocking the people from coming. I was totally convinced that someday I wouldn't be on guard, and those people would come and take me, and I would just be gone. And I worked at those blocking techniques for many, many years. And I still would sometimes get into that frozen, paralyzed state throughout my life, but I got really good at getting back out of it before any of the people came. I never told my parents or anyone else until many, many years later. I had learned as a very young child not to talk about the things that I saw or heard. I was told from a very young age that I had a very vivid imagination and that I was overly sensitive. I had already been told that none of the things that I said I experienced were true. They were all dreams or imagination. I had seen translucent type people who seemed like lovely grandparent types that would visit sometimes and disappear. I saw an angel at the age of 5 that I called the Tooth Fairy because that was my little girl way of describing her. My family, as loving and wonderful as they were, they didn't understand these things and laughed it all off as Marcia's imagination or Marcia's dreams. So I just kept this terror experience to myself, and I became a pretty nervous child. Learning to block my energy feelings before they increased in intensity became my way of protecting myself. And then, about 20 years ago, I read a book about a woman who had similar experiences. She was scared too, but through a series of circumstances, she was helped by some very wonderful metaphysical teachers who very gently guided her and helped her to understand her experiences. She eventually began working as a psychic medium and a healer and eventually an author. Well, I didn't know exactly what to think about all this, but I decided that maybe what I was blocking wasn't something bad at all. Maybe it was just something that I didn't understand. So I decided to begin a journey. I went to a psychic fair and spoke to someone who suggested that I start meditating about 10 minutes a day. And I had no idea how to do that. And I was still pretty scared. So I got a few books about how to meditate. And I wrote to the author of the book that I had originally read that started this new adventure of mine, because in her books, she had said that she prays for protection. So I wanted to know how to protect myself before I would start any of this meditation stuff. So she did write back to me, and she told me of a prayer that she said when she prayed for protection. And I kept reading that prayer over and over. I typed it out on little pieces of paper and left it everywhere and kept trying to remember those words. I didn't want to start this meditation thing until I could remember all those words just right. And then it happened. It was one night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I found myself trying to remember those words to the prayer. And I kept trying to think of the right words, and I was kind of upset with myself that I couldn't remember them right. And all of a sudden, I was in this huge funnel of swirling light it was a brilliance that just can't be described in human terms. And the words to the prayer changed. And I could hear those words booming forth in words that I was familiar with, in words that I could understand. And the booming voice I knew to be the voice of God. And the voice was my voice. And I was in such awe of where I was. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. Now I'm going to know all the answers. And I felt myself going deeper and deeper into this swirling light. And then I thought, wait a minute. Where is it that I'm going? I have a husband, I have a son. I don't know where it is that I'm going. And so I said inside of myself, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. I need to go back. And immediately I was back in my bed at home. No struggle, no being paralyzed. Just as soon as I said I wanted to go back, I was back. And it was at that moment that I realized where God was. It was then that I realized that God wasn't out there somewhere, but within me and within each and every person. And all that power of the universe is within us, not somewhere else. That moment sent me on a journey of self-discovery. And it eventually led me here to this chapel and to study with Reverend David. And yes, that moment changed my life. I haven't had another experience quite like that one again. I may or may not have another one like it. But what I know now is that I had that experience in that way for a reason. It was for my highest and best good to have that experience. And I had expressed a willingness to open to myself with good intention. I also found that those gray cloaked people who I was so afraid of as a child are actually a group of teachers and healers. And I no longer have any fear of them or the energy feelings that I get. I'm so glad that I've continued breaking down the blocks that I so carefully built around myself. My experience is far from unique. There are hundreds of books that people have written that describe similar experiences or near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. And I sometimes hear people talk of their experiences and I think, wow, I wish I could have an experience like that. But what I know now is that every moment is an awakening. Every moment we have a new opportunity to learn something new about ourselves that helps us, encourages us to try something new, think something different, meet someone new. Awakening is igniting. Awakening is a birth and a rebirth. Awakening is daring to think and then creating something new from that thought. Awakening is being willing to open to new ideas, new thoughts, new words, new actions. Awakening is being willing to meet new people, go to new places, bring new things into life that help us move forward on a path that brings harmony and balance into our lives. For a while, I kept wanting to have another huge experience. I thought that was my actual goal. And now I know that the awakenings that are the most important are the small nudgings that keep us moving forward in a positive direction in life. The concepts that are taught here at this chapel about cause and effect, body representations, and mind powers, they all seem very simple. But in truth, they are the power of the universe. Those simple teachings are keys to living an empowered life. I think the biggest awakening for me was to understand that it's okay to be me. I don't have to conform to what others think in order to be okay. I can understand and accept others for what they believe, and I can also be confident in my own inner knowing. We each have that amazing, creating energy, God light within us. All that infinite strength and wisdom right inside of us to guide us as we walk on this earth plane. I define awakening differently now because I know that it's the awareness of the subtle changes and nudgings and signals that we get every day that are important. Before I had my big awakening, I was led to read the right book at the right time. Had I ignored those nudgings, I might still be perfecting my talent at blocking my connections to my inner guidance, my inner teacher. The encouragement that I've found here at the chapel has been a birth and a rebirth, an awakening for me. I've found encouragement through Reverend David to learn to value myself and to get to know myself better so that I can better understand the world around me. And my extended family embraced my newfound confidence as well. There's an awakening within you that can be the birth of something miraculous in your life. Allow the miracle that is you to blossom and bloom in the way that feels right for you. Take the little steps of change that lead you to your goals and honor the awakening of the value that is you. God bless you.